I always believed love was built in the quiet moments. Not the big gestures, not the fireworks, but in folding laundry together, sharing leftovers, and texting each other drive safe even after 10 years of marriage. My name is Claire Bennett, and until recently I thought I had a perfect life. I live in a leafy suburb just outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the mountains breathe a kind of peace you don't find in cities. I'm a freelance interior designer, which means my days are filled with fabric swatches, floor plans, and the scent of fresh paint. My clients are mostly local families and coffee shop owners, nothing fancy, but I love what I do. And then there's Daniel, my husband. He's 36, charming, driven, and a senior executive at a marketing firm downtown. We met at UNC Chapel Hill, where he fell for me over shared coffee and late-night study sessions. He said I was the calm to his chaos. I believed him. We've been married for nearly 11 years. We don't have kids by choice, not by circumstance. Life just got busy and we always said maybe later. But our little world felt full enough. Or so I thought. It was Monday morning, and Daniel was already halfway out the door when I came downstairs in my robe. "Coffee's on the counter," I said, sliding his travel mug into his hand like muscle memory. "You're a lifesaver," he said, kissing my forehead. "Long day today. Big meeting with the regional team." "That's the third late night this week," I teased. "Are you cheating on me with PowerPoint?" He laughed. "You know if I was. I can't lie to save my life. That's what stuck with me. I can't lie to save my life." He said it so easily, so warmly, and I believed him. That afternoon, I was working on a nursery design for a couple expecting twins. I remember it so clearly because I spent an hour picking the perfect shade of lavender. I was halfway through creating a mood board when my phone buzzed. "Daniel, might be late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you." I texted back a simple heart, but something about it made me pause. That night, I sat alone in our kitchen, eating reheated pasta and sipping from a wine glass that once felt too fancy for just me. Our house was quiet, our white-paneled colonial with navy shutters, the one we renovated ourselves 5 years ago. Every room held pieces of us. I looked at the clock. 9:47 p.m. Then I looked at the framed photo on our mantel. Daniel and I in Charleston 5 years ago, sunburned and laughing. That version of us felt so real, so present, till reachable. But something had started shifting, and I couldn't name it yet. The next morning, I woke up alone. Daniel had slept on the couch, claiming not to disturb me after coming home late. I believed him. Or maybe I wanted to believe him. Breakfast, I brought it up casually. "Maybe I'll swing by your office this week and bring you dinner. You're working so hard." He hesitated. "You don't have to do that." "I want to. It's our anniversary week," I smiled. He smiled back, but something flickered in his eyes. That was the first time I felt it. Distance disguised as tiredness. A hesitation that didn't match his words. Till I convinced myself everything was fine. Through all, we still laughed. We still kissed goodnight. He said he loved me. And I had no reason yet to doubt him. But something inside me was already beginning to listen. To watch. To wait. And that something, quiet as it was, would soon change everything. It was Wednesday, 3 days before our wedding anniversary. 11 years. I still remember the ivory dress I wore, how Daniel whispered, "I'll never stop choosing you," while slipping the ring on my finger. Those words used to feel like a promise. Now they felt like a memory echoing louder than they should. I stood in the kitchen with my laptop open, a dozen tabs of restaurant menus and recipe blogs staring back at me. I decided I'd cook his favorite, lemon rosemary chicken with roasted garlic potatoes, a meal I hadn't made since our 3rd anniversary. I even found the wine we toasted with on our honeymoon in Sonoma, buried in the back of our wine rack like it had been waiting for this very moment. "Dinner for 2 delivered straight to his heart," I said to myself with a smile. But beneath that smile was a question I hadn't dared voice yet. Would he actually be happy to see me? That morning, Daniel had left in his usual whirlwind, buttoning his sleeves while reading emails, kissing my cheek while on a Bluetooth call. "Back late again?" I asked, stirring my coffee. He hesitated a moment too long. "Yeah. Month-end review. It's chaos right now." "I figured," I replied. "So, don't eat junk, okay?" He chuckled. "You know me too well." But I didn't, not anymore. At 6:45 p.m., I packed the dinner carefully. I added cloth napkins, candles, and a small handwritten note. "Happy early anniversary. Let's steal a moment for just us." I even wore the blue wrap dress Daniel once said made my eyes look like ocean glass. Maya, my best friend, FaceTimed me as I was locking the door. "You look amazing." "What's the occasion?" she asked, grinning. "Just a little surprise for Daniel. He's been drowning in work." There was a pause. "Claire," Maya said slowly. "You sure everything's okay?" I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "It will be. I just want to remind him what we have." Maya didn't push. She never did when I wore my brave face. The drive to Daniel's office downtown took 15 minutes. It was almost 7:30 when I parked. The building glowed softly under the evening sky, glass walls reflecting the last of the sun. I carried the bag inside and walked up to the front desk. "Hi, I'm here to see Daniel Bennett," I said to the young receptionist. She blinked. Mr. Bennett didn't say he had any visitors." "I know, it's a surprise," I said with a warm smile. "Anniversary dinner." Her expression tightened for a fraction of a second, barely there. But I noticed. "I think he's still in the conference room," she finally said, gesturing to the hall. "Third door on the right." I thanked her and started walking. The hallway was quiet. I passed Daniel's office. It was dark. But soft laughter echoed from farther down. Light spilled from the crack of the third door. I slowed my steps. Something inside me whispered, "Don't look," but I didn't listen. I peeked in. Daniel sat across from a woman, young, elegant, her laugh high and melodic. Her hand rested lightly on his wrist as she said something I couldn't hear. He was smiling. That smile he used to reserve only for me. He didn't see me. I didn't step in. I didn't scream. I didn't drop the bag. I simply turned around, walked back down the hall, and set the dinner carefully outside his office door. That night, I drove home in silence, the food untouched beside me. I parked in the driveway, walked into our house, and sat at the kitchen table. Candles I had packed were still flickering in my memory. The note still folded inside. And the truth, cold, quiet, devastating, sat with me like a shadow. And it hasn't left me since. I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of our ticking wall clock. It used to be comforting, rhythmic. But now, every second it counted felt like proof that something had changed, that something had ended. Daniel came home just after midnight. I heard the front door creak open, the sound of his shoes slipping off, the way he always sighed when he thought no one was awake. I stayed still in bed. He crept in softly, slid beside me, and whispered, "Sorry I'm late." I didn't respond. And neither did the woman in the conference room. The next morning, I sat in the kitchen in silence, coffee cold between my hands. Daniel walked in wearing his navy suit, the one I'd tailored for his promotion last year. "You're up early," he said, leaning down to kiss my cheek. I flinched. He pulled back. "Is something wrong?" I looked at him, really looked. At the way he avoided my eyes. The way he adjusted his cufflinks twice. The way guilt hides in plain sight. "Did you like the dinner I left at your office?" I asked calmly. He blinked. "Dinner? The one outside your office door," I said, keeping my voice even. "The one with your favorite wine and a note that said, 'Let's steal a moment for just us.'" There was a pause. Just a second too long. Then he smiled. Oh, that. I didn't even see it until I was leaving. I thought it was from catering. Catering doesn't use my handwriting, Daniel. He laughed nervously. Claire, come on. It was late. I was exhausted. Thank you for doing that, really. It means a lot. Didn't mean a thing. And he didn't ask why I left it instead of bringing it in. 'Cause he knew. After he left, I stood in the middle of the kitchen for a long time, clutching the mug like it could anchor me. I didn't want to believe what I had seen. But I did. I had always told myself, if I ever saw him like that with someone else, I would confront him right then and there. But I hadn't, because I wasn't ready for the answer. Later that day, I called Maya. I need you to tell me I'm not going crazy, I said, my voice shaking. You're not, she said without hesitation. What happened? I told her everything, from the dinner to the laughter to the way he touched the other woman's hand like it was his right. I didn't confront him, I whispered. I just left. That doesn't make you weak, Maya said. That makes you smart. You don't blow up your life until you're ready. I don't even know who she is, I said quietly. Then that's the next step, she replied. Find out. That night, I watched Daniel get ready for bed like everything was normal. He hummed while brushing his teeth, made small talk about weekend plans, even asked if I wanted to go hiking on Saturday. I smiled. I nodded. But inside, something was breaking. Not because I had lost him, but because I realized I had already lost myself. And now I needed to find out who he was giving himself to. I couldn't stop picturing her. The way her hand lingered on his. The way her laughter seemed to melt the space between them. She didn't look worried or nervous or ashamed. She looked familiar, not to him but to me. I spent the morning pacing my office, the sunlight pouring in like it was mocking me. My hands trembled as I opened my laptop. I typed Bennett Plus Marketing Plus Team into the company website's directory. There were photos of all the departments, row after row of smiling professionals in neutral business attire. And then I saw her. Second row. Black blouse. Sharp jawline. Confident smile. Her name, Amelia Rhodes. I clicked on her profile. Marketing analyst. Hired 8 months ago. Young. Ambitious. 26, maybe. Her bio mentioned a scholarship at NC State, a passion for data storytelling, and a side interest in photography. I felt sick. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she wasn't just some stranger. I knew her. 3 years ago, I gave a guest lecture at a young professionals event in downtown Asheville. It was about creative work-life balance, especially for women in competitive fields. After the talk, a girl with a notepad had approached me. You were amazing, she'd said. I want to do what you do. You made it sound possible. We'd talked for 20 minutes. I gave her my card. Her name was Amelia. The room spun. I grabbed my phone and called Maya again. She's someone I mentored, Maya. Briefly, yes, but I helped her. I encouraged her. She knew who you were, Maya said softly. And she still chose him. The betrayal felt sharper now. It wasn't just Daniel. It was her. Someone who once looked at me like a role model. Now sitting across from my husband, touching his wrist like it belonged to her. That evening, I watched Daniel eat dinner across from me like nothing had changed. He complimented the mashed potatoes. Asked if I'd seen the latest episode of that docuseries we loved. Do you know Amelia Rhodes? I asked, interrupting his monologue. He froze for half a second, only half. But I saw it. She works in my department, he said, reaching for his glass. Why? I think I remember her from an event years ago, I replied. She seemed eager. Daniel nodded. Yeah, she's sharp. A little intense, maybe. But a good analyst. He said it too quickly, too flat, like a script he'd rehearsed. After dinner, I took a shower and sat alone in our bedroom, hair still damp, phone in hand. I opened Instagram, typed in at Amelia Rhodes _ Her profile was public. Beach photos, lots of fist selfies, hashtags like #workbabe and #late nights that pay off. And there, buried in a carousel post from 3 weeks ago, was a group photo in Daniel's office. He was standing behind her, not touching her. But his smile. It was the same one I saw at our wedding. The one I hadn't seen in months. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hit follow. Let the game begin. Because if he was going to lie to my face, I was going to find the truth behind his back. The moment I followed Amelia, I knew I was crossing a line I never imagined I'd need to. But trust was already gone, burned slowly by every unexplained meeting, every late night, every half-hearted kiss. I wasn't looking for closure anymore. I was looking for proof. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I lay in bed beside Daniel, listening to the soft rhythm of his breath. I wondered how he could sleep so soundly knowing what he was doing. Or maybe he thought he was invincible. Maybe he thought I'd never question him. 2:14 a.m., I got out of bed, padded barefoot to my home office, and opened my laptop. I went back through our shared credit card statement, the one we always said we'd both monitor but never really did. The last 3 months painted a story more honest than his words ever had. DuPont Hotel, June 3, $432.60. Oyster and Vine, June 18, $198. Floral and Fern, July 1, $89.50. He hadn't taken me to a dinner date in nearly 6 months. I printed the statement. Then I opened Amelia's Instagram again. Her captions, once innocent, now read like confessionals to someone paying attention. Working late, but the company's not bad, winking face, #grind together. There are people who make 9 p.m. meetings worth staying for. Photo of 2 wine glasses. Candlelight. A man's hand barely visible. I zoomed in. It was blurry, but the watch on his wrist looked exactly like the one I gave Daniel for his birthday last year. The next day, I waited until he left for work before I carefully searched his home office drawer. I found a small black pouch. Inside was a hotel keycard, unmarked except for a sticker labeled Room 804. I sat down slowly, like gravity had doubled. He hadn't even tried to hide it. When Daniel came home that night, he smiled like nothing was wrong. "Crazy day," he said, loosening his tie. "You wouldn't believe how long the board meeting ran." I looked at him carefully. "Where did you go for lunch?" He blinked. "I didn't really eat. Just grabbed a protein bar." Lie. His phone had buzzed earlier while he was in the shower, an Uber Eats receipt from Oyster and Vine. 4 entrees. I nodded, pretending to believe him. But inside, I felt something crack. Not just from sadness. From betrayal. From disrespect. Later that night, I stood in front of our bathroom mirror, wiping away my makeup, staring at the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. I wasn't just hurt. I was done pretending. I picked up my phone and called Maya. "I need your help," I said. "I'm here," she replied instantly. "I'm not ready to leave," I said softly. "Not yet. But I am ready to know everything." There was a pause on her end. Then her voice dropped low. "Then let's find out what he's really hiding," Maya said. And with those 8 words, something inside me snapped back into place, my strength. For weeks, I had been walking around in a fog, confused, hurt, waiting for Daniel to come clean. But now, I was done waiting. I was going to find the truth myself, piece by piece, until the lies had nowhere left to hide. I opened a folder on my desktop and labeled it D Evidence Confidential. Felt cold. Felt cruel. But it also felt necessary. Maya helped me draft a list of what we needed. Phone records. financial transactions, calendar inconsistencies, photos, anything digital that could contradict his stories. And while I worked on the spreadsheet, Daniel continued playing his role. The loving husband, the busy executive, the man too tired to talk at night but never too tired to leave early in the morning, cologne clinging to his collar. He had no idea I was watching. He had no idea I was documenting every step. First revolve lead came through his email. Daniel had left his laptop open in the living room while grabbing a shower. A notification popped up. Your trip to Charleston is confirmed. Charleston? He hadn't told me anything about Charleston. I clicked the email before I could stop myself. It was a hotel reservation for 2 guests, 4 nights next month. Under special requests, private terrace, ocean view, wine on arrival. My hands started to tremble. Charleston had always been our place. We spent our first anniversary there. Now he was taking her. I screenshotted everything. That night, I didn't mention the email. Instead, I asked casually, anything exciting coming up? He shook his head, chewing slowly. Same routine. Nothing major. I smiled. Glad things are steady. He smiled back. The lies were so easy for him now, it made me wonder how long he'd been practicing. 2 days later, Maya gave me another bomb. I had a friend run a soft check on his company's internal travel system, she said over the phone. Guess what? That Charleston trip? It's not approved. It's not even on the calendar. Which means he's not going for work, I finished. He's taking personal time and lying about it. We were quiet for a moment. Then Maya added, Claire, are you ready to confront him? I didn't answer immediately. No, I finally said. Not yet. Not until I have every last piece. I don't want to give him room to twist this. I want facts. You're stronger than you think, Maya whispered. He doesn't even see it coming. That weekend, I borrowed Maya's spare phone and used it to follow Daniel's Uber history through shared receipts I found in his inbox. Most rides ended at the office or familiar restaurants. But one stood out. July 14 to 10:06 p.m. drop-off Rosemont Residences. A luxury apartment complex on the edge of town. I looked up the address. Then I checked Amelia's Instagram, scrolling until I saw a photo taken at sunset from a balcony with the caption, Nothing like this view. #Rosemont views. Puzzle pieces were snapping into place. That night, Daniel came home smelling like the citrus wood cologne I had given him 2 Christmases ago. He poured himself a drink, smiled at me, and asked, Want to do something fun this weekend? I looked at him, holding my breath. I thought we could drive up to Boone. Maybe do that hiking trail we loved? Sure, I said, smiling back. That sounds perfect. But in my mind, I wasn't packing hiking boots. I was packing evidence. Because now I knew everything he didn't tell me. But there was still one thing I needed to see for myself. I had the emails, the photos, the credit card receipts. I had the Uber logs, the hidden hotel bookings, and the late-night Instagram clues. But what I didn't have, what I hadn't let myself face, was seeing them together. In real life. With my own eyes. That would be the last piece. So I made a plan. Daniel had mentioned he'd be working late again Friday night. That same tired excuse. Only this time I didn't pretend to believe it. Instead, I followed him. I borrowed Maya's car, an old silver sedan that didn't draw attention, and waited down the street near his office parking garage. My heart thudded so loudly it made my hands shake. At 7:42 p.m., I watched him exit the building, no laptop bag in sight. He wasn't going back to work. He was freshly shaved, hair styled, jacket folded neatly over his arm. He looked like a man on a date. I stayed far enough behind to not be seen. I didn't breathe easy until I saw his Uber pull up and him climb in. I followed. Slowly. Quietly. They didn't go to Rosemont like I expected. They went somewhere worse. A small Italian restaurant near the Riverwalk. I parked down the street and waited, heart in my throat. Then I saw them, Daniel and Amelia, stepping out of the car like they had done this 100 times. She wore a red dress, the kind you don't wear to just dinner. And he looked at her the way he used to look at me. They were seated by a window. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. I watched as he leaned in, as she tucked her hair behind her ear, as he reached across the table and took her hand. And then he kissed it. A soft, practiced kiss, like a promise he never gave me. I couldn't feel my body anymore. Only heat. Then cold. Then nothing at all. I pulled out my phone and snapped the photo. Just one. For me. For the truth. The final undeniable proof. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tightly my fingers ached. My phone buzzed once, Daniel texting. Late night again. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. The words didn't even sting anymore. At home, I stood in front of the mirror, staring at the woman I'd become. Stronger, yes, but also grieving. Not just for the marriage, but for the version of me who still believed in it. Maya called as I sat on the edge of the bed. Well, she asked softly. I saw them, I said. Together. Holding hands. He kissed her hand, Maya. Her silence was heavier than words. So what now? She finally whispered. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. I end it. But not in anger. Not in chaos. I'm going to end it on my terms. But as I stood on the edge of that decision, I realized. Even grace takes strength I wasn't sure I had left. The next morning, I didn't get out of bed right away. I stared at the ceiling, letting the weight of everything I now knew settle over me like a second skin. The lie had grown so thick, so carefully constructed, that it almost felt like a second marriage, one Daniel had built without me. And now I had a choice to make. Do I confront him now? Or wait for the perfect moment to show him I know? But what is the perfect time to end a life you spent a decade building? By noon, I had made up my mind. No more quiet pretending. No more silent dinners. No more answering his love you texts with a heart that no longer believed them. But before I could confront him, Daniel came home early. Surprise, he said, walking in with takeout and a smile. Thought we could do lunch together. I stared at the bag in his hand. Thai food, my favorite. He was playing the doting husband again. And for the first time, I didn't feel confused. I felt insulted. How was your night? I asked, watching his eyes closely. He blinked. Late. Conference calls. I think I fell asleep on my desk. I smiled. Must have been exhausting. Especially after such a romantic dinner. His smile faltered. What? At the Riverwalk. With Amelia. Red dress, corner table. The hand kiss was elegant, really. I didn't expect you to be so theatrical. His face went completely still. And just like that, the act was over. Claire, it's not what it looked like, he said quickly, setting the food down. I was just... Don't, I said, holding up my hand. My voice was calm, but my heart was pounding so hard I thought he might hear it. Don't insult me with another lie. He sank into the kitchen chair. I didn't mean for it to happen. You didn't mean to have a second life behind my back? Or you didn't mean to get caught? I've been lost, Claire. We've been distant for months. That doesn't give you permission to build a new relationship while sleeping in my bed, I snapped. He covered his face with his hands. I thought it was just a phase. I didn't think it would get this far. And yet, I said quietly, you booked a romantic trip to Charleston. You bought wine and flowers. You told her the same lies you used to tell me. He didn't speak. For once, silence was honest. "I'm not here to scream," I continued. "I'm not here to beg. I just want you to know that I see you now, Daniel. Fully. Without the stories. Without the charm." His eyes met mine, exposed, ashamed. "What are you going to do?" he asked. I looked at him, really looked. The man I once loved. The man who once made me feel like I was the only one in the room. And now? "I don't know," I whispered. "But I know I can't stay in a place where love feels like a guessing game." Later that night, I sat in the backyard alone, wrapped in a sweater, watching the stars. The house behind me was still. Daniel hadn't said much since our talk. He stayed upstairs, letting the silence grow like ivy on crumbling stone. I wasn't sure where I was headed next. But I knew this much. Staying meant losing myself. Leaving meant losing him. And both would break something I could never get back. But the longer I stayed in that house, the more I realized. It had already broken. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Daniel packing. Not dramatically, quietly, almost sheepishly. I stood in the hallway, watching as he folded shirts into a duffel bag like a man trying not to leave fingerprints behind. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice hollow. He looked up, startled. "I thought maybe I should give you some space." "That's convenient," I replied, crossing my arms. "Now that the walls are closing in, suddenly you care about what I need." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. Because there was nothing left to say that I hadn't already uncovered. The truth was, Daniel didn't expect me to find out. And he definitely didn't expect me to stay calm when I did. I think part of him was waiting for me to scream, to cry, to fall apart, because that's what guilty people are used to. Chaos. And when they don't get it, they don't know what to do. So he did the one thing he was good at. He ran. Maya came over later that afternoon. I didn't have to explain anything. She brought wine and silence, the kind of silence that knows how to hold grief without suffocating it. "I don't know what hurts more," I said finally. That he lied or that it was so easy for him. Maya took a slow sip. "I think what hurts most is realizing the man you loved only existed in your version of the story." I swallowed hard. 'Cause she was right. We sat in the living room, surrounded by framed photos of a life that felt like fiction now. Hiking trails. Beach sunsets. Birthdays. Smiling at the camera while lies curled just out of frame. "I wasted 11 years, I whispered. "No," Maya said firmly. "You invested 11 years in someone who didn't deserve it. That's not a waste. That's survival. That's growth." Later that evening, Daniel texted, "I'm staying at a hotel for now. Let me know when we can talk." I didn't reply. Because what was left to talk about? He had made his choices. And I was finally making mine. I walked through our house, our perfectly curated magazine-worthy house, and felt nothing. I touched the walls we painted together, the couch we picked after hours of arguing in a furniture store, the wedding photo on the console table. Then I picked it up, stared at it, and placed it face down. That night I began packing a box. Not to leave, but to rebuild. I gathered everything I needed. The evidence folder, my business documents, the deed to the house. 'Cause if Daniel thought he could slip out and return when the storm had passed, he was mistaken. This wasn't a storm. This was a shift. And everything that once stood between us was falling apart. So something new could finally be built. I spent the next 3 days doing what I hadn't done in years. Choosing myself. I woke up without checking for his texts. I made coffee just the way I liked it, too strong, too sweet. I stopped hiding the printed evidence folder in my drawer and laid it openly on the kitchen counter like a declaration. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was becoming the woman who would never let this happen to her again. Maya helped me draft a letter. Not an angry one, not emotional, just truth. Plain, firm, final. "You made a choice. And now I'm making mine. You don't get to break something and then decide how it's cleaned up. I'm not asking you to explain. I'm not begging for closure. I am informing you that I'm keeping the house. My lawyer will contact yours. There's no space for you here anymore. Claire. I reread it 3 times, printed it, signed it, and slid it into an envelope. That night, Daniel came to the house. I watched from the living room window as he walked up the steps, slower than usual, like he was unsure whether the door would open. I let him in. He looked thinner, tired, but not remorseful, more inconvenienced. Claire, he said softly, can we just talk? I'm not here to talk, I replied, handing him the envelope. I'm here to close the chapter. He stared at the letter in his hand. You're serious? I tilted my head. Do I look like I'm playing? He stepped inside, setting the envelope on the table like it burned his fingers. You really think this is what you want? He asked. To throw it all away? I laughed, short and bitter. I'm not throwing anything away. You did that. I'm just taking out the trash. His face twisted. It wasn't that simple. No, it wasn't, I said, fire finally rising in my chest. It was 1,000 tiny betrayals you didn't think I'd notice. 1,000 chances to be honest, and you failed every single one. I made a mistake, he said, his voice cracking. Amelia, she wasn't supposed to happen. But she did. And you let her stay, I said. You didn't trip into an affair, Daniel. You walked into it, again and again, with your eyes wide open. He sat down heavily. I didn't want to lose you. You already did. There was a silence then. Heavy. Dense. Finally, I stood up and walked toward the door. I'm going to rebuild, I said. And when I do, it'll be a life I built with both eyes open. No lies. No secrets. Just me. He looked up at me, this time not with resistance, but something that almost looked like regret. But I didn't care. Not anymore. I opened the door. You can go now, I said. And this time, he listened. But what surprised me wasn't that he walked away. It was how light I felt once he did. The silence he left behind wasn't hollow. It was clean. Like air after a storm. For the first time in months, I could breathe without wondering what else he was hiding. I could move through our home, my home now, without feeling like a ghost in someone else's life. That night, I slept without nightmares. I didn't wake up sweating or crying or staring at the clock. I woke up rested, clear, free. I spent the next few days clearing out what no longer belonged. His shoes by the door. His cologne in the cabinet. The dried-out anniversary flowers I'd once pressed between the pages of our wedding album gone. And with every drawer I emptied, I found pieces of myself again. The woman who dreamed of starting her own design firm. The woman who loved painting late at night while jazz played low in the background. The woman who once believed she could be whole on her own. She wasn't gone. She was just waiting for me to come back. Daniel texted once. I'll be out of town next week. Just wanted to let you know. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. A few days later, I went to dinner with Maya. We sat at the same rooftop bar Daniel and I used to go to, only this time it didn't feel haunted. You look lighter, she said, sipping her drink. Because I am, I replied. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm fighting to be chosen. You're choosing you now. Exactly. That night, I went home, poured a glass of wine, and walked out to the backyard. The stars were out, clear, quiet, unbothered. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo I had taken of Daniel and Amelia at the restaurant. I stared at it one last time. And then I deleted it. Not because I'd forgotten what he did, but because I no longer needed proof to justify my pain. I had lived it. survived it. And now I was done carrying it. I looked up at the night sky and whispered, "Thank you for breaking me just enough to rebuild." 'Cause on the day I let him go, I finally came home to myself. And now, I was learning how to live in that home without him. The first Monday after Daniel was gone felt strange. Not because I missed him, but because the silence no longer felt like absence. Felt like space. Space to move freely, to think clearly, to breathe deeply in a house that no longer asked me to shrink. I opened all the curtains, let the light flood every room. I moved his things out of the guest closet and filled it with canvases and brushes. I'd always wanted to paint again, but I told myself I was too busy, too tired, too behind on dinner. The truth was, I wasn't too anything. I was just in a life that didn't belong to me anymore. I started sketching again, first in quiet, uncertain lines, then with color. One night, I stayed up until 2 a.m., barefoot in the living room, jazz playing on the speakers, brush in hand. The canvas wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And as I stepped back to admire it, I felt something rise in my chest. Not sadness, not grief, pride. A week later, I saw Daniel's name flash on my phone. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail I didn't bother playing. I didn't need to hear his voice to know what it would say. He missed me. He made a mistake. He wanted to talk. But I had talked. I had screamed in silence, cried into pillows, searched for answers in receipts and hotel key cards. Now I wanted peace, not permission. I started going on walks again. Just me, the trail, and a playlist filled with songs I'd forgotten I loved. People smiled at me, strangers who had no idea I was in the middle of a quiet rebirth. Sometimes I'd smile back. Sometimes I wouldn't. But every step felt like mine. Maya came over one Saturday afternoon with 2 coffees and a mischievous smile. "You're glowing," she said, handing me the cup. "Am I?" I asked. "Oh yeah. You've got that post-liberation glow." I laughed, sipping my drink. "Is that what this is? Liberation?" She leaned in. "It's the aftertaste of survival. It's freedom mixed with a little bit of I told you so." We both laughed, and this time it wasn't to hide pain. It was joy. Real joy. That night I wrote in my journal. I thought losing him would destroy me. But it wasn't the end. It was the unmarked beginning of my story. I didn't know what the future would look like. But for the first time in a long time, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. It would be written by me. And this was the final page of the chapter he thought would destroy me. I stood in front of the mirror on what would have been our 12th wedding anniversary. But instead of wearing the pearl earrings Daniel gave me on our 5th, I wore gold hoops I bought myself last week. Instead of heels for a dinner he'd forget to show up for, I wore sneakers. And instead of a forced smile in a dimly lit restaurant, I had real joy in my chest. Tonight I was going out with Maya, with music, with laughter. And no more pretending. No more second-guessing. Just me. Alive. Honest. Whole. But before I left, I opened the box. The one I'd hidden for weeks in the back of my closet. Inside were the remnants of the woman I used to be. Our wedding photo folded in half. The bracelet he gave me after our first miscarriage. The Charleston Hotel confirmation with Amelia's name still printed beside his. I stared at it all one last time. Then I reached for a match. No rage. Just release. The flame caught slowly, curling at the edges. And then, it bloomed. Smoke rose into the cool evening air as memory after memory turned to ash. And with each flicker, I let go of every "I'm sorry" he never meant. Every promise he broke. Every version of myself I twisted to keep his love. By the time the box was gone, the sky had turned dark. And I had never felt brighter. I met Maya at our favorite rooftop bar, the one overlooking the city skyline. We ordered 2 drinks and sat in silence for a moment, watching the lights flicker like stars that had finally come down to meet me. "You're quiet," she said. "I was just thinking," I replied. "A year ago, I would have done anything to keep him." She looked at me, surprised. "And now?" I smiled. "Now I would do anything not to lose myself again." She raised her glass. "To the woman you are now." I clinked mine gently against hers. "To the woman I should have always been." Daniel never came back. Not really. There were a few more texts, some quiet attempts to rekindle. But I never answered. Not because I hated him, but because I no longer needed him. He was a chapter. I was the book. 1 year later, I launched my own design studio. It wasn't huge. It wasn't perfect. But it was mine. Every inch of it. Every detail. Every risk. Every win. And when clients asked about the name, Claire House Interiors, I simply said, "It's a reminder." Of what? Of who I became. When the lies finally stopped and my life finally began.